Hello pilots, and welcome to MotionRC.com. I'm your product specialist, Wesley, and today we're going to be taking a deep dive into the Nexa Tripacer from here at MotionRC.com. Now, for our pilots that are looking at getting into balsa aircraft, I always recommend you start with something that's high wing and tricycle gear with no retracts. And the reason I like the Nexa Tripacer is it fulfills that for me. If you're looking at moving from foam aircraft into wood aircraft for a more premium feel, this is a great place to jump off into. Now, if you're interested, I have done a full assembly walkthrough on the Tripacer. It's available here on the Motion RC YouTube channel, and I highly recommend it. You can literally follow right along with it and build this aircraft exactly like you see it in front of me with those step-by-step instructions. Now, on this aircraft, what I want to go over first is the way it's covered and the quality of the finish on a wood aircraft. Now, included in every Nexa aircraft is going to be an extra piece of the covering material in the multiple colors. So if you get a hole or you accidentally have a bad landing and you tear up the wingtip, you can patch that very easily right out of this. You cut it out with a pair of scissors and it just sticks over it. Now, you don't have to actually use a heat gun or anything on this type of material. It's a sticky based covering, kind of like vinyl, and you can just stick that right over the damaged area. Now, of course, the other thing you can always use to make a quick patch is a piece of clear boxing tape. We've used it for years on these wood aircraft. If you have just a little poke hole and you need to cover that up, it works really well. Now, as far as aircraft go, the Tripacer is a super easy flying airplane. A lot of guys like Cubs for their first one. The one thing that I don't like about a Cub is it's a tail dragger aircraft. So ground loops and crosswinds, it's a lot more susceptible to bad flying tendencies on your takeoff. And that's where the Tripacer, it's basically a Cub, but tricycle gear. And like I said, the ground handling is a lot easier on them. Crosswinds, it's not as susceptible to it. Really nice. Now, something that I did on mine is added a pilot figure. If you're interested in using the exact same pilot figure I used, he's actually out of the Black Horse wheel gun. They're available right here on MotionRC.com as a separate part. He actually fit in there just about perfectly into the stock seat and really adds that little bit of extra scale detail to it. There's nothing like having an empty cockpit. Having a pilot in there just makes the aircraft look that much better. And he's glued right into the seat that comes with the aircraft, and he fit perfectly. Now, up on the front of the Nexa Tripacer, you're gonna see that the battery hatch is actually the front window. This just lifts off of the aircraft, revealing all the room down inside of it to where you can put your battery. Now, for my battery in the Tripacer, I used a 3200 4S battery, and you get a really good long flight time on this battery setup. Now, I did change some of the parts from the recommended parts that are on the website. The parts on the website are great and are gonna work perfectly in the airplane, but here's the fun thing if you're coming to balsa. Let's say you had an older aircraft of a foam one that has gotten damaged, crashed, whatever, and you've got some parts laying around. You can actually go and kind of look around on our website and find an aircraft that's gonna be equivalent size, needs around the same power system, mount that to the front of it, and you can be flying. So in the case of this one, I actually have one of our flight line motors out of one of our foam aircraft that I installed on the airplane. And then I used an ESC that I also had laying around out of a crashed jet. There's no reason you can't use some of your spare parts that you've got laying around to build one of these aircraft and save quite a bit of money that way. And you won't have almost as much as a foamy into this aircraft to build it that way if you've already got parts laying around. Same thing when it comes to the servos in the aircraft. I actually used free wing servos all the way around this aircraft to finish it. Once again, the ones on the website are gonna work beautifully if you're buying brand new, but if you're like me and you got a lot of broken airplanes laying around after a lot of flying, take some of those parts out, check them to make sure they're good, and you can reuse them in these aircraft. It really is a win-win situation for you. Now, speaking of the motor up on the front of it, now to get up to the cowling to show you the motor, what we need to first do is remove the spinner. This is the stock spinner that comes in the kit. I did spray paint it red. It's a darker red right out of the box. I just spray painted it a brighter red so it more matched the aircraft. And then you can remove that front spinner, revealing the prop nut behind it. Then you have the white propeller. Now this is just our standard APC propeller from motionrc.com. And once again, I spray painted it white with the red tips, just added that nice little detail. And this is the fun thing when you're doing balsa aircraft. I can't get across enough. Customize, build on it, change what you want, because that's the fun of wood. Now, once you take that off, you're gonna also have the back plate that's gonna slide off, and that's gonna reveal your front motor. Now, in order to get the front cowling off, we also need to remove the front landing gear. You'll see that I actually have a hole up in the front where we can put an Allen key in, loosen off the front landing gear, and then pull it out the bottom. Once you've done that, the cowling can come on and off really easily. Now, I just screwed in 4 screws around the outside of the cowling. We need to pull those off to actually remove the cowling off the front, and now you can see how the motor is actually mounted. Now, the cool thing on most of these Nexa aircraft, they're gonna come with this motor mount you're seeing right now. It's 4 screws, or 4 bolts, I should say, with a plate in it. And you set your depth using this plate, then put the screws and the bolts to where it holds it right where it needs to be. Now, it takes a little bit to get used to putting one of these together, but once you've set a few of these up, it really becomes second nature to set these things. And it really is a great motor mount design because it makes it where you can use any kind of motor you want, size-wise, and you can make it fit in the aircraft. Once you get it all where you want it, I actually use a little bit of thin CA and I drop that on all the bolts around it, and that locks them in where they're not gonna loosen off in the future. You could always use Loctite also, but just a little drop of thin CA usually does it for me, and they never come loose. If you need to crack them off, you just turn them with a wrench and they'll pop right off, even with that thin CA on that metal. Now, as far as what receiver I used one of our Lemon RXs with a satellite, and I was able to kind of zip tie all the wires and everything up nice and neat inside the aircraft to get everything nice and clean. The landing gear on the aircraft does come with wheel pants and fairings. These are pretty easy to put together. You just cut them out with a pair of scissors, and then they've got a bolt that goes through the actual aluminum strut and holds the 2 pieces around it to actually fit them onto the aircraft. The cool thing about these type of landing gear is they can take a lot of abuse without actually tearing them up. So while you're getting used to flying wood airplanes, it's gonna be a great set of gear that aren't gonna get tore up on you. Now, let's go back to why you might have chosen the Tripacer. It's super easy to fly this aircraft, guys. It has a great slow speed envelope on it. This isn't gonna be one that you're gonna be out there just ripping around as fast as you can, but you can do loops, rolls, anything you want to do like that with the Tripacer, and then still have a great experience doing touch and goes, bringing it in with the flaps down, and doing maybe some STOL style flying. And then with this larger landing gear and the larger size of this aircraft, it's also going to do really well on grass fields. Now, the other cool thing, if you're coming from foam to balsa, is the rigidity of this aircraft. You know, there's really not a lot of flex, which makes the aircraft fly even better. That's one of the biggest things I can tell you when you move from foam aircraft to a wood aircraft is they actually do fly a little bit better when you're flying them. Of course, you can always put a gyro in them. In my case, I didn't run a gyro in this aircraft. It's kind of just a trainer airplane that a lot of us started out with whenever we started in RC, and we didn't have gyros back then. And this aircraft flies fantastic without one. Although, if you want to add one, it was only gonna make it fly better. Now, if you need to take the wings on and off of the aircraft, you can go back and see this in the assembly video, but it's just 1 bolt on the flying cabanes on the bottom of the aircraft to loosen them. And then you have a screw on both of the top parts of the wings that's actually going to come out of the wing spar, and then you can slide them out. I always try and put a servo connector there, that way if I need to take the wings on and off, it's easy to unplug them. Now, in the case of the Tripacer, I really don't ever take the wings off because it's a small enough aircraft that it fits in the back of a car pretty comfortably, truck, trailer, easily. so I don't really take this one apart. Well guys, this has been the Nexa Tripacer. If you've been thinking about trying a balsa aircraft, I highly recommend you go check this airplane out. They're available right now in stock at Motion RC, and I think you're gonna have a lot of fun if you give this a shot. As always, whether it's air, land, or sea, you can get it right here at motionrc.com. And until the next video, I've been Wes from Motion RC, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.